Good evening, traders. How was your weekend? Hope your weekend went well. Hope you enjoyed yourself. Hope you're able to backtest your strategy. Welcome to another weekly analysis whereby we drop analysis on currency index. Now, before we go far, we're going to be starting with the dollar index. That's what we're going to be starting with. So let us check the dollar index starting from the weekly time frame. Now from the weekly time frame, we can see that we've made a lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, and we can see that there's a retracement to this particular supply zone, which is over here. This particular supply zone, which is over here. I'd like to change the color. Let's see. Okay. Now, let us check what we can see on the daily so far for the dollar index. Now, looking at the dollar index, we can all see that it's in a supply zone, a weekly supply zone. So what do we expect according to our analysis like that? Now, we may be expecting to see the dollar fall, hopefully to a demand zone of this region before we move to the upside. But before we continue, we'll still like to check what the 4-hour is telling us. Now, if you look at the 4-hour carefully, you see that we have moved to the upside and moved to the downside, and we just managed to break above this. And we are also sitting on a 4-hour demand zone. So what do we expect? Since there is still gap above here, it is possible that we can see price coming up to this place, afterwards breaking to the downside to tap into this particular demand zone. That is possible for the dollar index. Now let us check the next one. Now the next one we're going to be checking is the euro index. What can we see in the market concerning the euro index? What's the euro index trying to tell us? Okay, what can we see concerning the euro index? Now we can see from the weekly perspective, we made this up move, down move to this demand zone. We went up, but unfortunately demand was broken. So what do we expect? Now we can expect price to continue to fall until we get to this region. But note that anything on the weekly time frame may not just happen suddenly. It has to build up over time. Now, what can we see when it comes to the daily? Now, when it comes to the daily, we've seen that price has broken the previous low, which is by this side, coming to this side. So what do we expect? We expect a little strength on the euro index, at least to this supply zone, before we continue the fall to the downside. Now, on the 4-hour time frame, what can we see concerning the euro index? Now, like I said, when it comes to the daily, I'm still expecting that price will move to the upside. That is, price will flow to this upside. Now, if you look carefully now, we have a low and the low was broken. Now, this is the previous low, which was broken to the upside. So we can see that euro is beginning to gain some momentum to the upside. So if price will get to this demand zone for the euro index, then we should be expecting the price of or the currency strength of euro to move to the upside. That is very, very much possible. Now let us check the next pair we have on our list. Now the next pair we have on our list is the Gbp Index. And let us see what the weekly time frame is telling us when it comes to the GBP index. Now, we can see now that we've made this high, we came down. Now, that means that we had a demand zone at this particular place that was broken to the downside. So, what can we see? Now, we expect that price should tap into a weekly supply zone before continuing a move to the downside, before we continue a move to the downside. Now, if we go to the daily, what can we see? Now, we can see that we continue to press downwards. We continue to press downwards. So we expect that price should come to this supply zone, hopefully something like this, before we see a move to the downside, something like this, before we see a move to the downside. Then we can expect a move to the downside. But let's see what the 4-hour is saying so far. If we look at the 4-hour, what can we see? Now, our analysis from the weekly, daily, and 4-hour look exactly the same, because like we said we've made this low. So we're expecting price to come into the supply zone, then fall to the downside to any of the zone that was marked in our analysis for the daily or for the weekly. Now let's quickly move to the next pair. Now the next pair we have here is the Swiss franc, the index for CHF. Now we've made AI, then we came down, we moved to the upside. Now at this particular point, we broke to the downside. Now we came back to a supply zone here, and from here, we can see that price is already trying to move to the downside, maybe come to this weekly demand zone. Now, if we go to the daily, what can we see? Now, on the daily, we've made a very good low to the downside. We've made this low, we moved up, we made this low. But unfortunately, we've broken above the previous low. Now, and when something like that happens, it's likely we can see price moving something like this before a fall. That is very, very much possible in the market. But we will not decide until we see price moving towards our direction. Now, if price is not moving towards our direction, then we cannot say that the price will go to do something like that. That is one thing I want us to know when it comes to price. Okay, so let's continue. Now, the next place we'll move to is the 4-hour. What can we see on the 4-hour? What's price saying when it comes to the 4-hour time frame? Now, on the 4-hour, what can we see? Now, if you look at the 4-hour, if you see price action here, you can see that we are moving towards the downside. But at this particular point, we seem to have broken to the upside. Now, if price will come to this demand zone, then we expect price to move up. Else, if price comes to this particular supply zone, we may see price moving to the downside. Now, any of these two is possible in the market, but I think that it's better for price to move to the downside to tap into this, what's it called, daily demand zone, as we can see from the higher time frame perspective. Now let's move to the next, what's it called, currency index. Let's move to the next currency index so that we can quickly analyze it. Okay, let's see what the JPY is saying. JPY is the next index that we'll be analyzing. Now, if you look at the JPY carefully, you will notice that throughout last week, most of the JPY peers were very, very, very strong. Like CAD JPY, GBP JPY, most of them were moving massively to the upside. And that's because the JPY was seriously dropping to the downside. Now we can see a demand zone around this area for the weekly. So if JPY will tap into this demand zone on the weekly time frame, we will be expecting that price will move like this to the upside. Now that is very much possible when it comes to price moving to the upside. Now, if we go to the daily, what can we see? Now, according to the daily time frame, we can see a supply zone at this region that can be beneficial to us in the future. And also, we can see another supply zone here that price may react to in the future. Now, if you go to the 4-hour time frame, what can we see? Now, according to the 4-hour time frame, we are still massively bearish because we came to this supply zone to form supply. We came down again, went up, we came down again. Now, if price will start this week by breaking this previous high, then on the retest of the the demand zone that will be here, we'll be expecting the strong movement. We'll be expecting a strong movement on the JPY so that it can make the peers of JPY sell to the downside. Okay, now let's quickly move to the next pair we'll analyze. Now, the next pair we're analyzing is the Canadian dollar. Now, let's check what the Canadian dollar has been doing so far for the weekly time frame. Now, looking at the Canadian dollar for the weekly time frame, we can see that we have a supply zone here. This was the previous demand zone that was broken to the downside before price coming to this supply zone. Now, on the daily, what are the things we can see? Now, we'll notice that price just got to this supply zone. And what do we expect in such a case? Since the daily is already bullish, we can expect that price will fall to this downside, respecting this demand zone right here, or any of the demand zone right here before we move to the upside. Now, if we go to the 4-hour time frame, what can we see on the 4-hour time frame? Now, on the 4-hour time frame, like we said, it's already showing some intention of it looking like it wants to sell. But please note that there will be further confirmations that will be needed before we can make that decision. Now, we can see that price has just been moving effortlessly to the upside. So, we can still have a drive to the upside before breaking the previous high here, and we were expecting a supply here, then falling to the downside. Now, this is very much possible when it comes to the Canadian dollar on the 4-hour time. Okay, the next pair we'll look at is the Australian dollar currency index. Now, what can we say about the Australian currency index? Now, we have come to a weekly demand zone. So, what do we expect in such a case? Now, we expect as price came down, moved up, came down. So, we're expecting a break, and we can expect price moving towards the upside, breaking previous highs in the market. Now, that's what we can expect for the weekly. Now, if we go to the daily, what can we see? Now, we can see that at this particular place, we broke to the upside. And that shows that the daily is already becoming bullish. Now, we expected a demand zone here. And what do we expect? Now, we are expecting that price should also come to break this high before falling again, and then thus going to the upside. Now, on the 4-hour time frame, what are the things we can notice? Now, since we already know that we are expecting price to break the previous high, 4-hour is also likely to be in line with that direction. So if you see price, or you look at price very well, you notice that price has been moving to the upside gradually. Now, if price will break this particular range here, on the retest of price to one of these zones, we expect that we move to the upside. Now, that is what I will expect for the Australian dollar when it comes to. Now, let us look at the New Zealand dollar. What can we see about the New Zealand dollar? The weekly demand zone is at this region, and we will notice that price is gradually falling to come to this demand zone. on the weekly. Now, if you move to the daily, what can we see? Now, we can see that price is moving to the upside because it broke this previous low. Now, it is possible that price will break that low, I mean, to the upside, then still come to this particular um, demand zone here, knowing that people will definitely want to buy, and price will then slam to the downside. Now, why is this possible? Now, this is possible because we are already getting close to a weekly demand zone. And since we expect that price is already bullish, we expect that we may tap into this weekly demand zone before moving to the upside. Now, what can we see on the 4-hour time frame? Now, on the 4-hour time frame, we have this break to the upside, and we can see that intentions of price is beginning to move to the upside. That is, we have this lower, went down, broke to the upside, and likely to break this. But if it doesn't break this, we may expect a fall from this particular region to this weekly demand zone. Now, these are all the analysis I have for you for this week for the currency index that we trade in the forex market. Now, if you love this video, kindly like and subscribe to this page and share with your friends so that you can it can support this page, it can be ranked properly. If you have any question, please feel free to comment, or um, you can inbox me in the description. My email will definitely be there. So till we'll see again, have a lovely week and make sure you remain profitable as a trader. Thank you.